October 29, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. This is what the chart looked like today, and this is how I have it marked up. The pre-market highs and the pre-market lows didn't really come into play, so I'm just going to delete it right now just so it just cleans up the chart a little bit. And there was only one piece of economic data that came out at around 7 a.m. Pacific Standard. You see this big spike in recovery. This happened at 7 a.m. It was the CB consumer confidence and the job openings. Then after that, there wasn't really much more news that came out. I took a total of 2 trades, one here and one here. They're both winning. It was a higher low and a lower high. It was a great trade that I thought was setting up right here. Unfortunately, I didn't take it because it formed at 6:53, which is only about a few minutes from the release of the data. And I'm just a little weary because I felt it could have gone sideways or done pretty much what this did right here. Spike down, recovery, and I just didn't want to be involved with that. So I ended up not taking this trade. And then there was another, I would consider a hunch trade right here. It looked really nice, but I ended up not taking it because the setup just wasn't clean. So I'm gonna get into this trades today. And it looked like in the pre-market, it was just choppy. There's a 2-legged sell-off, a big push up, then more of a shallow push, which I kind of captured in this red up channel. But it also fits somewhat in this trading range. So it's a little confusing for me right here. I couldn't really tell if it was going to bounce off the red or it was going to bounce off the trading range. And then, broke out, sold off, it kind of got choppy. So in the pre-market, there was a spike, a sell-off, another spike, tested a double high here. So I did have the pre-market high drawn because I thought it was going to be maybe important, but it turned out not to be. And then it sold off, consolidated, and sold off again. So right about here is where the setup that I saw was I considered a possible trade, but I was just a little more conservative. And I look back and I kind of felt like maybe I should have taken that trade, and probably the characteristic of it would have played out within time before the news came out. So we have a localized new low, low of the day. It pushes up. You have a first entry long pullback, second entry long pullback, and it creates this higher low. Now it's a break of this green down channel, break of this green up channel. So this, let me just clarify, this orange down channel is played out, broke, tested the new low. So these 2 legs, I think the down, going down has maybe played out, had a strong push above the EMA, sold off, bounced and pushed hard above the EMA a second time. So when you see this, I'm thinking, okay, that's a strong reaction. I drew this as a trend line. And so I just waited because I see the first entry long, second entry long, looking for a reason to go long. It creates a confirmed higher low. Confirmed higher low has a great signal bar, flows very bullish and above this big guy. So I'm not too concerned about this orange down channel making one attempt down and then pushing a second attempt down because it looked like it had a very strong reaction right here when it touched. And it could be argued that, it touched a third time here. So I thought this is a really good trade. What stopped me was the news is coming out in about 7 minutes. So I just wanted to wait. Looked like it would have gotten filled here, and then this would have gotten me my profit target. Clearly well before the triple pop here that I would have been worried about as a resistance. And I would have dragged my runner right up behind these guys and maybe have gotten stopped out by one of these. Definitely by this time, my runner probably would have gotten stopped out. So it's unfortunate, and I wish this had set up, without the news item coming out. And I look back and I was thinking maybe I should have just taken it. It might have been worth a shot because EMA is starting to hold. The setup just looked pretty clean, pretty good. Oh well, that's neither here nor there. I missed the trade, that's okay. It pushes up, so I'm trading within, I think, this yellow up channel. And I thought this was another possible trade, makes a new high. It's a first entry long pullback, creates a second entry long. It didn't break below, but that's okay. It made a triple test, what I thought, considered a triple test. It's a 2 legs back, hits the support. You could argue it didn't really touch the EMA, but it could be close enough. And I like that, even though the second entry long trigger bar, which is this red one, isn't that good, I like the, I didn't like the signal bar, which is this guy here, kind of being red, but I like the trigger bar, which kind of made a matching low and then engulfed the previous candle. So I thought this is a possible trade. Bounce off support, 2 legs back, potentially just bounced off the EMA close enough, and there's enough room to the high. So I thought that was a possible trade. Then prices continue chopping. This is what I considered a hunch trade. I saw it and I was thinking, man, I really want to go long, but I couldn't justify it. And I'll explain why. So here we're clearly in some kind of range, right? So I was thinking I had the range down here, and then when it had this many touches, I was considering maybe the range is a little bit higher here, but I just kind of dropped it down and said, okay, well, I'm going to keep the range low here and draw another support here. So you could say there's a triple test, 1, 2, 3. It is touching pretty much and bouncing off the bottom of this. This top of the range looks pretty nice. I saw this push down, made a double bottom, triple test, reversed strongly, and closed at the high. Unfortunately, it didn't break above. The thing that was stopping me was it is pushing to the high of this range. So there's clearly no room to scalp out. And you could say maybe the resistance is going to be up here, but you cannot deny the fact that there was 1, 2, 3. This next candle could come up here, create its own triple test, and I'd be buying into the high. So that kind of stopped me, but I had a hunch that this is going to work out because it's such a strong push and rejection up. It looked like it would have worked, but again, I couldn't justify the trade. It just wasn't, I mean, maybe with more experience and seeing the context and overall feel, I'll get better intuition. But at that moment, I just, decided to sit it out. Prices move up, breaks out the top of this yellow up channel, comes pushing back down. Technically, you have a first entry long. You have a second. You don't really have a second entry long. You actually just have a first entry long. Now, it broke below, but it never came back above it. So you finally get kind of a second entry long confirmation here. But by then, there's no setup. And this actually sets up for my first trade. So I saw this as a break of the orange down channel break, tested the low, and now it's coming back up. So it looked like it was consolidating, made one attempt up, pull back, could be making a second attempt up. I thought it was pushing back into this yellow up channel because the yellow up channel does want to test its high. It had an overshoot, made somewhat of a corresponding overshoot down here, and now it looks like it's pushing back up. Saw this as a spike in a channel. I don't really know if this is a trading channel yet, but I did like this higher low. I saw it's a first entry short, second entry short, kind of a higher low. It is higher than the previous setup, but it is above the EMA now. And I did see it as like a push back into the yellow up channel. Now I'll admit it is a little more aggressive, and I felt like it was kind of like holding on the EMA. And it was a first entry short, second entry short, failure, and a confirmation of the failure. And also first entry long, pull back, second entry long. It's a little loose on this setup, meaning like it wasn't the cleanest and most firm. So I did take it though, and I will admit it was a little aggressive, and I was able to scalp out, move my runner to 1 point above break even, which is right here, and it got stopped out. Looks like if I was trying to hold out for 2 points, I may or may not have gotten it. But if I held any longer, I would have gotten, I probably would have had to sweat through this because my stop was below this guy at the time. And I would have had to sweat through this. And if I stayed for anything longer, I probably would have gotten stopped out here. So this is probably good for 1 point, maybe 2, but you'd have to sit all the way through to here. So I was just happy with my 1 point. My runner really didn't do much. Then prices continue moving. It hits this trading range. It looks like it was 2 legs up. I'm not too keen on anything here. It is a new low here. First entry short, second entry short. This is your signal bar for second entry short. You got to confirm second entry short here. Doesn't look that enticing to me. It could be the top of the range. The top of the range really isn't confirmed. The bottom really isn't confirmed either because it only has 2 touches and 2 touches at the top. So I'm just waiting. It just gets noisy. It's a little confusing, so I'm just kind of sitting on my hands. You have first entry long here, looking for a second entry long, but by the time this second entry long kind of forms here, it looks like it's a break. First attempt down. Maybe it's going to go up. This is kind of spindly. It's a pretty big candle. EMA doesn't really, it matters, but in this case, it's too sideways to be reliable. So you could say maybe it's a first entry short, but then you also have a first entry long, potential second entry long. If you have a second entry long confirmed here, I definitely didn't have a trade ready. And it confirms here. I just wasn't too hot on the idea of entering this, although you could be thinking it's going to test the highs of this orange up channel. We looked at this, it kind of flushes back down, so it would have stopped me out, but that's okay because I didn't really like this setup anyways to feel like there was anything worth taking here. chops around, it just gets noisy. This is your second entry long signal bar, inside bar, follow-up trigger bar is really strong and massive, but you have no idea that would happen. So it's here's just like, okay, clearly I don't really know or can figure out what is truly happening. So I'm just sitting on my hands, just watching this noise hopefully play out. Then I have a new low here because this low is actually lower than this one. I have a first entry short, actually right here. First entry short, pull back. Second entry short, I call this an almost trade because I wanted this to be more bearish because it kind of closes a doji. It is a break of this green up channel, tested the highs technically. I did have this as a trading range, and you could say I'm coming back into the range, so I'd be selling at the high, which is true. I just wanted a better signal bar. Since I didn't get it, I thought, okay, I'm going to wait for a lower high confirmation just to feel like, okay, prices are really moving back in. You do get a lower high here, but so here I don't know that I'm going to get a lower high till this one forms. This one had to form and close lower for me to even consider getting a trade ready. But when I see this, I'm just kind of waiting. I see this one form, it's bouncing around. It finally flushes down and through. Then okay, it's pushing through the midline. Unfortunately, by the time this happens, the scalp that I'm looking for has already been made. And I'm certainly not going to take it down here because it could work, but I feel like I've already, the stop that I had to put, this is a 14 tick candle. I had to put my stop not above this red one, but above this green one to feel safe. And that's just a huge risk I didn't really want. In this case, it would have worked because it's pushing back down to the low of the range. Of course, you don't know that. Pushes up and out, and it breaks out of the trading range. I saw this as potentially maybe the top of the trading range could be here because it had a failed breakout pushing back down. So I thought maybe the top of the range isn't here, but potentially here. At this point, I also found this red up channel. It's very shallow. It touches 1, 2, 3, and also touches 1, 2, 3. So it could be, a trading range or a trend channel that's very shallow. So you'd be playing a mix of range rules and channel rules, but channel rules probably more applicable to these smaller channels. So it's just a little noisy and confusing. So I'm just kind of sitting, waiting, hoping it gets a little easier for me to interpret. You have a new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long here, confirmed second entry long, but the follow through isn't that enticing. You could argue that it's bouncing off the bottom of this red up channel potentially, but it just doesn't look that clean. If you did take a long, it looked like it would have gotten stopped out. It pushes, you have a first entry short here, and you get a second entry short way up here. By that time, it just feels like too long. Plus, when I see this, I'm not thinking of short yet, even though you could argue it's bouncing off the rejection, or it's being rejected off the top of this red up channel. But this just isn't a good signal bar. Then this one is a doji, and it just, it created a second entry short here. First entry short, second entry short, but this is by the count, a second entry short, but there's no setup here, no safe setup. I'm looking for a lower high, and you don't really get one. It just kind of pushes up and out. So it gets choppy. You have a second entry long here, but it's an inside bar. The signal bar is inside bar. First entry long, second entry long. Doesn't look that enticing. It just recently made a new all-time high. So you're asking if you're going to go long to press prices back up to here, potentially to test the high of this orange up channel, but it just doesn't feel like a safe high probability setup. It kind of flashes up and then kind of comes back down, chops around. Nothing I particularly like or feel safe with. The first entry short here, pull up. You get a second entry short confirmed here, but nothing, when you're seeing this unfold, nothing's really telling you to get a short ready, especially after seeing this big candle. By the time this one closes, the scalp feels like it's already been made. Then you have to sit through this noise. Kind of bounces up. Is a localized new low, first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short. Second entry short could fail, but even if its second entry short is about to fail, I'm not liking how far it is from the EMA, and it's already pressing and testing the localized high of day. So it's just nothing really, really convincing for me to take right here. Pushes up, and then this creates a lower high. So this is actually the second trade that I take. It's a break of this orange up channel. Break, tests a new high, comes back, creates this, and closes low. And I'm thinking, okay, there's a potential lower high here. This one opens here at the low where this pink arrow is, flashes up, does a whole bunch of stuff, never breaks above this guy, pushes down and below. So it technically engulfs this bearish candle. And then I decided I liked the way it was moving. The count on this candle was nearing its end. 2000 was almost done. So I actually entered at the low of this guy, came back and actually filled me, and then it closed a little higher. So when it turned into this green candle, I thought, okay, there's a chance I'm going to lose on this trade, but the risk was a little smaller. So it opens here, it pushes up, flushes down, takes out my profit target. I move my stop loss for my runner from up here to break even +1, break even -1. It comes back up, takes my profit target for most of my contracts, and then takes out my runner, and then closes high. So I thought, okay, I dodged a bullet here. I was pushing a little bit more through the EMA, so that is a little risky because to get my 1 point, I had to push it, as you can tell, 1 tick below the EMA. That was a little more risky. It turned out it would have worked. And then I also saw this triple test, and I thought it was a possible trade here because it's 1 attempt down, 2, 3, potential trading range. And I'm thinking the EMA is starting to hold support. It was 1 leg down, pushback, 2nd leg down. I like that this is a very strong signal bar, and you could say it's a first entry long, push down, 2nd entry long right here. Then this candle felt like it was a short trap for anybody jumping in on this candle because it ticked 2 ticks below, boom, boom, then it reversed and closed strongly. Unfortunately, it didn't break above this double top. Had it did, I think I would have considered maybe jumping in, but I was also concerned that there's a localized high here. But this is a possible setup. I think it might have been a little more aggressive though. Looks like if I did do that, I would have jumped out and gotten my 1 point scalp, definitely by this candle. If I was going for 2, I'd probably overstay my welcome. I'd be sitting here, and probably the 2 points would have been achieved here. But going for 2 points meant I would have to be pushing through this double top, which I wanted to reduce the risk of. So possible trade here, aggressive. I skipped it though. Prices then continue moving up. Then it kind of pushes down, breaks. I thought it was going down this green down channel, breaks and tests the low, then pushes even harder, but now it's going into the last 10 minutes, and it just kind of sells off into the close. And then this is due to, I believe there's some big company earnings coming out. I think the one that I know for sure is Google. I can't really say this is due to Google, but there are a few companies that are releasing their earnings today that will move the market. They're pretty big, pretty well known. So I think this is probably that knee-jerk reaction. So took 2 trades today. The first one wasn't the best, wasn't the cleanest. And then the second one right here, I would say it was so-so because I did have to push it through the EMA, which is a little riskier. So not the 2 best trades, but I was fortunate to get green on both. So hopefully that was helpful.